If you're a resident in the UK and you have at least £50,000 saved and you want to finally start investing in real estate in 2026, then I'm going to show you the exact process that you can use to grow your wealth using the BRRR strategy. If you don't know what the BRRR strategy is, it is where you buy a rundown property, add value through a renovation, refinance the property at a higher value, and then rent the property out. And it is by far the best way to grow £1 million portfolio right now. And in this video is an entirely free course that you can use as a step-by-step guide to go and start building your own wealth. Right now, you're watching YouTube, you're getting confused by all the different strategies. You don't know whether now is a good time to buy. You may have even attended some 2-day seminars where you've got a load of value, but they've dropped a £15,000 price on the mentorship that you can't afford to pay. You're downloading all the free guides. You're wondering, is this deal that I buy actually going to really make me money? And the thing is that property is the next step for you. You're already in a high paying job, earning £50,000 to £100,000 a year, but you end up working overtime. You don't get time to actually go to your kids' training. You don't get time to go and watch them on a Saturday because you're working. You always spend so much time working, but you don't have freedom right now. You may also be someone that is sitting on equity in your property right now. You may have £50,000, £100,000 sitting dormant while you hate your job. Or you may not even hate your job. You may say to me, Jordan, I enjoy my job. I'm earning £60,000 a year, but now I really need to start thinking about the future and start to build generational wealth through property. You've seen average people with 5 to 10 properties, and you're sitting there wondering, how on earth have you done this? I'm in a better paying job than you. I'm more intelligent than you. But I'm here to tell you that they're not special. They just know a strategy that you don't know yet. And here's the thing, everyone thinks that you need to spend 50 hours a week to get started in property. But if you're already a high income earner or you have cash or equity to use, then as long as you understand how to use your time properly, you don't need 50 hours a week to be able to do well in this. You need 5 to 7 strategic hours that you can put towards property and start to build your portfolio. Now, you're probably wondering, why should I use the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy? Well, let's look at some of the other strategies that you can use and compare them to the buy, refurbish, refinance. So first of all, you have rent to rent. This is a great strategy for cash flow. You can get into property, understand how everything works, get up to £3,000 to £5,000 a month, but you're still governed by a landlord. A landlord has the hold over you. They own the asset. You just rent the property from the landlord. And even though it's a great strategy to get started in property, it's not one that's going to help you build assets. Then you have flipping. Flipping again is an awesome strategy that you can use. It's going to really help you build your cash pot to get into bigger deals or increase your income. But again, this strategy is not helping you build generational wealth. Then we also have the buy to let strategy. Now, a buy-to-let strategy is perfect if you've got £10 million or you already have a cash flowing business. Because when you're investing into buy-to-let properties, you are sinking 25% into the property. Meaning that if you only have £50,000, you're not going to be able to recycle that cash through properties like you're going to do with a buy, refurbish, refinance module. Using the BRRR strategy, you can use this and recycle the same amount of money through properties. You can buy them below market value. You can add value to the property via a renovation. You will then look to refinance the property at the higher value, and you then recycle your cash back out the property, but you can rent the property out as a single let, an Airbnb, a HMO, supported living, the list goes on. Now, this all depends on how much cash flow you actually want to earn, but using the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy and using that same pot of cash is something that the wealthy are doing right now. This is the strategy that can really help you take your foot off the gas. Maybe you're working 12 to 14 hours a day right now, and you're not spending much time with your family. Well, if you can start using the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy properly, recycling that same pot of cash through assets, you're getting paid twice. You're going to get paid with capital appreciation, and you're also going to be getting paid via cash flow. And depending on what strategy you use, obviously the cash flow then is going to be rent that you're going to be earning from the property. And now I'm going to show you exactly how you can go and implement it. The first step into the BRRR strategy is the buy-in phase. Now, you as an investor need to understand how you're going to be purchasing these properties. Are you going to be using full cash? Are you going to be using a bridging loan? Bridging loan is short-term lending over a 12-month period. You will put a 25% deposit down, then you will get a 75% loan against the purchase price that you can then use to get into the deal. You will also need to understand whether you're going to be using investor finance. Investor finance may be an option for you. So understanding what finance you're going to be using, first of all, is the most important. You're probably wondering, where am I going to find these properties? Well, you're going to be finding these properties on online platforms like Rightmove, On the Market, Zoopla. You're also going to be contacting estate agents in your area where you're looking to find rundown properties that you can add value to and sell. Now, the reason I say sell is because a lot of estate agents do not understand the BRRR strategy. So the best way to talk to them is to just say that you're going to be buying rundown properties to add value to sell. You can also find off-market deals. Now, off-market deals are incredible, but when you're starting out, it's very difficult to get these deals. Now, unless you're like me and you're willing to walk the streets of your area with 1,000 leaflets and deliver them all, only to get 2 replies. One was to say, don't ever contact me again. And the next was actually a deal that made me £40,000. That is something that you can do to get off-market deals. So you make a leaflet online, you'll then go walk the streets and deliver into your letters to see if you will find any direct vendor leads. Off-market deals are great, but when you're starting out, the best place to start is with estate agents. Now, you may say, well, I don't want to buy something that's on the market, but the whole point of this is for you to build a relationship with the estate agent, buy 2 or 3 properties from them understand that you're now serious, and then you'll have an estate agent that is basically your personal house shopper, and they'll be bringing you deals before they go to market, or they may have a deal that has fallen through, and you're now the obvious next choice. Why? Well, because you've shown that you're serious. You've bought properties from them before. You've sold a deal to an investor through that estate agency, so they know that you've got investors. So building relationships with estate agents is the most important thing that you can do before you start buying. And if this is something that you're really interested in doing, and you kind of know that you need to be doing it, make sure to click the link in my bio. We can book a call in with myself, and we can help you build out a custom bespoke roadmap for you to build generational wealth over the next 2 to 5 years. Moving on to the second stage. Now, this for me is probably the most important part of the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, and it is the renovation stage. This is where you will now begin to renovate the property, where you're going to add value to the property. Now, it's so important that you understand how renovations work before you actually go and buy a property, because as you can imagine, if you're going to buy a property and you think that the renovation is going to be £20,000, but then you have 3 different builders come through and they all say that, this is going to cost you anything from £50,000 to £60,000 or £70,000. Now, you've catered for £20,000 and you've already purchased the property. That is going to simply just ruin your deal. So understanding what type of renovation you're going to need is so important. You've got 2 types of renovations. You've got one that's a full back to brick renovation, a full gut, where you're pulling the house apart and then you're rebuilding it. And then you also have cosmetic, which is, changing your kitchen, changing your bathroom, replacing them, adding value, but you're not going back to brick because there's not damp everywhere. The walls are fairly well plastered. You can just paint over and do a cosmetic job. When you're using this strategy, it's so important that you understand how to add the most amount of value for the least amount of money. Now, one tip that I always try to do in my properties, whether I'm going to sell them or use the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, is to always try and add an extra bath, whether it's downstairs or whether it's upstairs. Toilet and basin can be vital. You may ask why. Well, if you're a tenant or you sell a property to an investor and they now have a party and friends come over, they need to use the toilet. They're going to have to go upstairs to use your own family bathroom. Why would you want that? This is a simple way that you can add value without spending thousands and thousands of pounds. So, Jordan, why is it so important that you understand the renovation process before you buy a property, you may ask? Well, if you're going to be buying a property, whether you're going to be using cash, bridging, investor finance, and you don't know how this stage works, then you are going to get found out. How? Because you may think that this renovation is going to cost you £20,000, but you haven't got into the process of actually understanding how it works. You haven't spoken to builders. One simple tip that I would say and give is when you are looking to get into development, always try and get a builder on side that will give you a hand with the renovation. Or you say, look, this is the renovation. Can you do it for me? I'm looking to build a portfolio. I want to build a team. Will you be happy to be in my team to help me build this? Because if you don't have a builder on board and you're, guesstimating that this is going to be a £30,000 renovation, and then you get the keys in your hand and you say to 3 different types of builders, can you come and give me a quote on this property? They come back and say, this is going to cost you 50 to 70,000. Each of them said 50, 60 and 70. Even if you go for the £50,000, which is the cheapest renovation, that could simply just ruin your deal. One huge thing, and this leads me on to my next point, which is huge, understanding how to deal with builders. Now, earlier on in my career, being in property for 7 years now, around 4 years ago, I used to think that everyone getting into property or anyone that I was going to work with wanted to be my friend and they wanted to help me build my portfolio, and they could see a long-term relationship. That's not always what happens. So I had agreed a renovation with a builder. They said, yes, this is going to cost you £40,000 to renovate. And I thought, great, I'm going to be able to get in, do the renovation for £40,000 and sell the property for a profit, because I was always looking to try and sell when I was earlier on to build my cash flow, right? And I got into a deal where I lost £25,000. I was naive, inexperienced, and the builder could see straight through me. And I had no choice but to pay him. Why, you may ask? Well, I paid him 50% of the full money of the £40,000 renovation up front. Why? Because I thought that was normal. I thought you're going to come in, do the work, so you need to be paid half of the money up front to be able to get on and do the build. And so after the rip out stage, I was then hit with a £25,000 bill, which was unforeseen circumstances, which, don't get me wrong, when you're renovating properties, you need to understand that there's going to be issues, there's going to be problems. But I was now in a dilemma. Do I tell him to leave site, I'm not paying you £25,000, and risk losing my £20,000 that I paid him to go and start the renovation? Or do you kind of sit tight and hope that over time that it's not really going to be £25,000 worth. It's going to be a little bit less. I was in a real bad predicament because if you're going to have another builder come in and work over another builder, that again is going to cost you a lot of money. So unfortunately, I actually got into a deal where I'd lost £25,000. I was set to make £28,000 on the flip, and I ended up making a grand total of £3,000 in 10 months. And I was so lucky to make that. So don't make the same mistakes that I did. These are the things you need to consider before you actually go and hire a builder. Always get referrals from other investors and landlords to vouch for the builder and say that they've done a great job for them. Have a legally binding contract which states that you have staged payments throughout the renovation after each achievement. Do not pay 50% upfront as a deposit. Make sure you only pay anything from 5 to 15%, where after that, the stage payments will kick in, and after every achievement, the builder will then get paid. Now guys, you obviously need to make sure that you're paying your builder on time, but you want to make sure that they're actually getting paid for the work that they've done. Another thing you should try and do is, if you're going to be hiring a builder and you're going to be working long term, I would always advise to try and go on their current sites now, their live site. A good builder or someone with a good team will say, yes, come and look at the work that we're doing now. This is what we're doing, X, Y, and Z. You can see the standard, see what their work's like, and see if you can actually build something with them. If you have a builder that doesn't want you around their sites now, or they haven't got many referrals, then that's probably not a builder you want to build a relationship with. And lastly, make sure that you actually understand the full renovation process. When I got into this and I lost £25,000, I didn't really know the prices of things. So whatever the builder said to me, I kind of took and said, yeah, that must be the price. But it's so important that you get to a stage where the world doesn't get pulled over your eyes. If you're someone who's going to project manage the renovation yourself, you may be a builder or you may be quite handy, then you're obviously going to save yourself a lot of money. And if this is something that you really want to build a portfolio in, and it may be a first deal, I would always advise for you to project manage that first deal, because you're going to get the on-site experience of what it actually takes to run a renovation properly. So you're going to be bringing in individual trades, and you're going to be understanding the prices of everything, the prices of materials, the prices of labor, so that when you going into your next deal where you're going to be using a builder, you feel confident and you understand everything properly. So managing your own renovations can be great at the start because you're not only saving money, but you're also getting the experience. Now, if you're someone that is looking to really start scaling this, you're obviously going to need to start building either your own in-house team, or you're going to have to be working with a trusted builder that you can really see a long-term relationship with. And that is now something that I have implemented into my buy, refurbish, refinance and flipping strategy. I now have a project manager that I trust and have been friends with for over 20 years. So we know that we're not going to be ripping each other off, and we are going to build something together. And if you can also do this, then you're going to build an amazing property portfolio. The third step to the BRRR strategy is the refinance stage. So what I typically say is, when you're coming towards the end of a renovation, typically 3 weeks before the end, I would then reach out to a mortgage broker and begin with a remortgage process. During this process, your broker will go and find the best lender for you right now, and they will then present you with a product or a lender that you will then get a mortgage out with. The reason I say 3 weeks before you complete the renovation is so that you can get all the paperwork done within that 3 weeks. And then when you come to the end of the renovation, you then have a valuer or surveyor coming into the property immediately. This will then give you the best opportunity to get your cash back as fast as you can, because the refinance process typically takes anything from 4 to 10 weeks. And the faster that you can get the valuer in and get the paperwork done, the faster you're going to get your cash back. So when you've agreed which lender you're going to go with, the valuer will then come out to your property. They will value it, make sure it is what you're saying it's worth, and then you really understand whether your due diligence at the start when you purchased the property was correct. Because if you are to value the property at £200,000, but the valuer then comes out and says this is only worth £175,000, you know you've gone somewhere wrong at the start. Because when you're working out the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, you should always work out your end value first. Find the end value, then you times the end value by 75%, and then that figure will have to equate to the purchase price, renovation, and all the buying fees to be able to recycle all of your initial investment back out. So once the valuation is complete, the valuer will then go back to the lender, solidify your end value with them, and then you'll move on to the refinancing process where you'll get a completion date to get the funds back to you. Hopefully, you've recycled all of your initial investment back out, and you can now continue to grow your property portfolio. The last phase to the BRRR strategy is the renting phase. Now, at this stage, you want to ensure that you have already had the valuation done. You don't want a tenant to be moving into the property when you still haven't completed the valuation. Why? Well, because if you've just completed a full renovation on the property, you've whitewashed everything, you've got a brand new kitchen which is sparkling, the bathroom sparkling, but then you have a tenant moving in with boxes everywhere, the valuer is not going to be able to see the full extent of the works that you've done. So when you're coming towards the end of the renovation process, you're obviously going to be reaching out to estate agents to discover which one you're potentially going to be using. You want to understand what reviews have they got, What landlords have they got that have obviously said that they're doing a great thing for them? What prices do they charge? Do they charge 10%, 12%? Understand how proactive they are with things that go wrong. If they have a leak at a property, do they leave it a couple of days before they let you know? Or they straight on it, they tell you straight away, and they're gonna get problems solved straight away. Typically, a letting agent will charge anything from 10 to 12%. And one thing you need to understand is that if you're looking to build a huge property portfolio, then of course you're gonna need a management company to manage all your properties and tenants, right? But when you're starting out, you may be at a case or in a position where you're happy to pay a letting agent £300 to £400 to find you a tenant, where they will get references and from other landlords. They'll credit check the tenant for you. You'll also understand where they're working and how much money they're earning to understand their affordability for the property. But then instead of them managing the tenant, you could then manage the tenant. Then when you get up to 5, 10, 15 properties, then you could maybe open your own management company where they can then start managing your properties. But until then, you may want to try and save £100, £200 every single month where you will just manage the tenant yourself. Now, do tenants give you stress? This is a question that is massive. Now, a lot of my tenants are perfect. You don't hear from them. There may be one or two little tweaks that you have to obviously go and make, but the vast majority of tenants are going to be great, and you're not going to have any problems with the property because you've just completed a full renovation. So there's not going to be an issue with the boiler. There's not going to be an issue with the electrics because you've just completed a full renovation. But if you did want to use a letting agent to find a tenant, they're worth their weight in gold, and that's something that I've always done over the years. Always find a tenant through an estate agency, even if I'm going to manage the property myself. Now, of course, all my properties are managed by my management company, but when I was starting out, I was just managing them all myself. And talking of all these strategies and putting it into action, Lee came into the program as a car salesman. He had no property background, but he'd wanted to get into property for 5 years. He took on his first rent-to-rent deal, which made him £15,000 net in the first year, and has now, in 12 months, purchased 4 properties using cash from his own property, and he's now raising investor finance to build his own portfolio. Harley and Sam came into the program having done property education before, but was still lost with no clear strategy and what next steps should really look like for them. After working with me, they came in, purchased their first buy, refurbish, refinance property, pulled out the vast majority of their property now for their next deal, which is going to be an all money out buy, refurbish, refinance deal in Bristol. Harj also came in the program with absolutely no idea about property, and he managed to purchase, renovate, and sell his first ever investment property, making £40,000 profit, alongside his high-paying job as an accountant. Now, if you're someone that's been sitting on the fence about getting started in property, you have cash or you have equity, and you want someone to hold your hand through the whole process to help you really build generational wealth, click the link in the description on this video where you'll jump on a call and I will personally build out your custom bespoke roadmap to build generational wealth for yourself and your family. I'll see you there.